Today's video is sponsored by our good friends at Famous Faces and Funnies. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, as well as our friends at Docking Bay 94, located in Boca Raton, Florida. Check us out on comicsandgames.com. Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of Codename YouTube Hero 2. Hi, I'm your presenter, Shabu Are You. Today's a little bit of a special edition in the sense that we're not talking about G.I. Joe. We are talking about comics, but we're talking about a comic that has been... It's funny, this comic, about like 2 months ago, you could get this comic for $1, and I was able to pick it up very early, and for that amount, and it's been skyrocketing ever since. And I'm talking about issue number 176 of Spectacular Spider-Man that came out in 1991. And guess who's the main villain? Corona. So we're going to go through this issue and show, and compare it to what's actually going on today. I thought this would be kind of a fun episode. So let's dive in and check out Corona. As with many issues, this one begins with our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man swinging through New York's skyline. He spots a lady right in the middle of traffic, and she's about to collapse. Spidey swoops in and scoops her up. While en route to the hospital, he calls out her symptoms. She is unconscious, her breathing is steady, and she has a high fever. Now, off the CDC government site, we know the 3 prime symptoms are coughing, shortness of breath, and fever. After Spider-Man drops off the lady at the hospital, Peter Parker is late for an interview with Dr. Forrester and his sister. So along with the reporter Joy, Peter gets a tour of the facility. Apparently, Dr. Forrester's sister had arranged for this interview session, much to Dr. Forrester's disapproval. Oddly, his sister Downey is not available. Being a huge science geek, Peter is really impressed with everything. This guy is really full of himself and he's kind of a jerk. At one point, Peter notices some suspicious data for a water experiment. The doctor quickly takes the paper away from him and tells him to mind his own business. Suddenly, a loud noise and banging can be heard, and the doctor orders his armed security to take action. Peter ducks out. He knows all this is kind of odd and fishy. It's Spidey time. The guards take aim and fire upon a woman flying in the air. She looks kind of like a bizarro firestorm for those that remember the Spider-Man and an Amazing Friends show back in the 80s. The guards take aim. These bullets have no effect, and she announces that her name is Corona, looking for the doctor. Suddenly, the guards pull out a new weapon given to them by the doctor. It's like some type of fire extinguisher. The doctor refers to her as some mistake, not even human anymore. Spidey may not know who is actually the bad guys in this scenario, but he couldn't stand by watching some other being be treated like a captured animal. He frees Corona, and as she blasts off, Spidey goes after to question her. She obliges and reveals that she is none other than the doctor's own sister. Apparently, she objected to him using human subjects on his radiation experiments and threatened to blow the whistle on him. So, the doctor solved 2 problems by abducting her and subjecting her to experiments. Man, what evil! On your own sister? Corona knows that she's nothing more than an experiment to her brother, but she wants his laptop to look for a way to reverse this. Spider-Man knows this all too well, and trying to talks her, hey, since you're in this situation, use your ability for good. She's like, hell no, I'm rich and famous. I don't have to do that. Spidey does offer to help Corona, but she just brushes him off and flies off. Fast forward, Peter returns home to MJ in the middle of looking like Jane Fonda and her workout. Out of nowhere, she passes out, becoming weak with the fever. Peter rushes her to the hospital. The doctor tells Peter this isn't an ordinary bug. Dozens of people in the Soho part of New York City are coming in with similar symptoms, and they're filling up the hospital. The doctor doesn't know what to do. Now, if that doesn't sound like it's coming from today's news, I don't know what does. It is true that when this first happened, doctors weren't sure, but then slowly they knew about the extent of the COVID-19 virus. Back at the Bugle, Peter, Joy the reporter, and the editor Ben have no idea where all of this is coming from, and the thought of it might be a cover-up, which Joy's like, yeah, did you know that this doctor has like pockets full of politicians and he has a file like 3 inches thick? So there is something to it. Peter also remembers the old lady he picked up and thinks there's a connection with all three. While Peter is on the phone, an explosion can be seen in the Forest Building in the New York Skyway. Sadly, a view that many saw during September 11th of 2011, 10 years later. Now, Peter is torn between staying with MJ, his duty as a boyfriend, and also his duty as Spider-Man. But she insists, go Tiger, do what you need to. Peter reluctantly goes. Spider-Man goes to the building to find Corona on site. She was able to discover something terrible, that her brother had tampered with the city's water supply. During the experiment on Corona, the purification system exploded, thus dumping toxic water back into the city's supply line. Cedric, the brother, paid off politicians to hide his undoing. Spider-Man comes to the conclusion Cedric is behind Mary Jane's sickness. This pisses him off. Enraged, he goes off on a warpath locating Dr. Forster. Peter questions him, demanding for the antidote. But he shockingly reveals that I've been working with the mayor all along to create a batch, and it's ready. It turns out Corona was lying the entire time. She wanted to have this power. It was her brother who had cold feet. While gloating, suddenly, Corona is overcome with another seizure. As her human cells and radiation come in conflict, the doctor says she's really unstable. She could either blow up, melt down, and die. So let's get the hell out of here. Spider-Man's like, what? Corona needs the batch of the antidote to stabilize her and continue her transformation. But that would mean that no cure for all those people in the hospital. One life for 1,000. Spidey has to stop her. During their struggle, Corona unleashes an energy beam. Instinctively, Spider-Man ducks it, but it hits the antidote batch, which goes down into the drain. Corona's reaction intensifies, and she goes subatomic and morphs into something more of a monster. Has the hope of curing MJ and all the others infected with this virus gone down the drain? Well, we'll find out in issue 177 of the Spectacular Spider-Man. Well, that was it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it.